Hi, my name is Noah Latte from Instinct Hub. In this short video, I'll show you the difference between class and ID selector in HTML. The both of them are very key component that helps developers or designer to sort of like target a specific element on the page. So let's take a look. In this example, I have come up with just a template. I copied Lorem Ipsum just to kind of display the functionality. So the structure of what I have is I have the head, then I have the body. So in the body, I populated it with just the template text. Then I have section 1 and section 2. So I made this so long so that the text will be longer than the viewport. So I have embedded both class and ID. As you can see, here we have an ID top and we have class of intro. We have also an ID of history and we have ID of intro. Now, one common thing to notice is I only have one ID at the top while I have intro, and I have on the section 2 I have one ID and I repeated a class name that was used at the top. So this is one common feature. One strict difference between class and ID is you can use ID once in a page. You can only attach one ID in an element, and you cannot repeat an ID multiple times on a page. So which means once you give an ID a particular name, you cannot reuse that ID on the page. An ID by itself is a unique value, something that is unique that is not reusable by any other element. So once I declare this history on this very section, I cannot repeat it anywhere else. I can only give another name to another ID. On the other hand, I can repeat class selector anywhere on the page or anywhere in my code. I can even repeat it as multiple times as possible. So while you can apply ID at once, you cannot apply ID multiple times on a code. You can apply classes several times on a page. So let's take a good example. One common use of a class is I can just target all the intro. To target the class, you just need to put a period, then your class name. So I'll make my declaration. I want the color to be blue. And when we refresh, we'll see all the element that carries the same class will be blue. So that's one significance of a class. So you can declare have so many CSS declaration on a class and attach it to so many elements. Now let's say I want to remove the intro from this. We can just go ahead and delete it. And once we refresh, you see that on the bottom there is no more blue. We can still remove it here. And when we refresh, you can see it. So the moment we keep getting rid of the classes, then we will refresh. So one common use of an ID, you can still use an ID on the CSS, but an ID, for you to target an ID, you need to use an hashtag, then the ID name. So I have top. So I can make my declaration. I can say margin or background color. Background color, let's make it red. If I refresh. So the only segment which is this section and the closing tag, were the one affected. So every other segment will be normal. So I cannot repeat an ID multiple times. because if you do, your code will produce error. The reason why I decided to make this a longer test is to show you another function of an ID. So I can use an ID to target just one portion of my element. Take for instance, there is a link here that says read more. So I want to target this history section, right? I gave it history ID. So all I just need to do is to make my link tag, which is the A tag, right, and target it. Just take note of the hashtag. So instead of putting an external link, I just embedded the ID that I used and with the hashtag. So if I come and I click it, it will take me to that location. So that's the basic difference between an ID and a class selector. If you like this video, tap the like button and follow us on our YouTube channel.